Rarely has mankind hesitated to eradicate the creatures that stand in the path of his conquest. If we find intelligent species, ritual extirpation of undesirable beings, odors from another world, the rest must be destroyed. Is it possible that our dark past repeats itself? Watch them and pray.
Good readings, ladies, gentlemen, government agents, those of you planning to convert to Christianity on your deathbed, and anybody who might be listening. This is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. I'm your host, Tasker, and we have Nick. Oh, is that your old person impression, or did water go down the wrong pipe?
I've been drinking a lot this weekend.
Most people save it for Memorial Day weekend.
I'm prepping
next week. Yeah, prepping pre-game and a week before.
Like, you know how ladies prep their diaphragms before they have sex? I don't know what that means, by the way, but they always talk about that.
I don't think that's a thing.
I don't know. I've heard them talk about. I mean, I don't know what kind of ladies I've been with. All right,
how exactly do you prep your diaphragm? Do you just fist yourself, or?
I have no clue. But you know how they say that, right? Like, they say they prep their diaphragm for sex. Maybe girls out there, maybe you could tell us what that means, by the way.
Yeah, like
Kegels or like some like stomach crunches. I don't know. But I'm prepping the equivalent of me getting ready for Memorial Day weekend is I was prepping my liver and kidneys this weekend.
So it's not as much of a shock to the system when the real debauchery begins.
Oh my God. I'm going to go through like fifths of everything, like 3/5. It'll be like 3/5, right? Which is how much a person was worth back in the day.
That's an interesting segue that I feel like you really put some effort into coming to.
Is it bad? The only time I remember fractions is when it's racist.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Well, and interesting that you bring this up because violence towards your fellow man, or even the lustful conversation we have, might station you in a particular place in today's subject, which if you've been a long time listener to the show, you know this has been a long fucking time coming.
Yeah, this is I don't know. I don't know shit about it, so I'm pretty excited. I mean, if you guys haven't guessed by now, Tasker is the one, doing this, so I'm going to be right there learning along with the rest of you.
Yeah, we're diving into literature, and this is just a cool metal subject that, I'm not all like, okay, yeah, there's okay, we'll get into it. I have a lot to say. There's, as you can see, I'm already bursting from the seams. So before all that, like always, we kind of have to get the vibe of how this episode's going to go, and what better way to do that and see what the stars have for us. So let's get our horoscopes, kind of get the flow and the feeling of things, and we'll just dive right into it.
Sounds like a plan. I'm going to have you go first, though, because I'm unprepared.
This is fair. Let me see. Because that's right. You didn't have to research this week. You're in vacation mode, right?
Yeah, dude, my brain is in the Bahamas right now.
Nothing wrong with that. So, some unusual events could cause you to feel discontented from your life and contemplate some big changes, Scorpio. Money matters might need attention and could prove frustrating. Outrageous ideas for improving your financial status could come to mind. Make a list of options, then wait a few days before making serious plans. This isn't the day to start anything new. Is it me, or have I been getting a lot of financial advice from horoscopes lately?
Yeah, is it worrying to you that they told you to that you might have to, I forgot what they said, but something about finding a different way to make money, basically? Yeah, what'd they say?
It's been flip-flopping. First, they're like, you should really worry about your future. Then it's like, you're worrying about your future too much. And now it's like, hey, you should really worry about your money. It's like, dude, make up your fucking mind. I came here for vibes, not fuck. If I wanted financial advice, I'd be fucking checking my horoscope on the fucking Business Insider.
True. And this horoscope is telling you to look for alternate ways to possibly make money if need be. And they're basically telling you to start giving blowbos behind your local 7-Eleven.
You might be right, actually. I mean, I do have the free time, a lot more time to look at porn, more so than I used to, I mean, like any good upstanding gentleman, you find a way, but it's time to let loose and just show the world what I'm made of,
Yeah, take your dentures out and just fucking go to town, man. Go to town on them.
Oh, good God, the old gum job, eh? Gross. So my star ratings are, I'm actually not surprised about this because I'm so hyped to get it to share this story with everybody today. My sex is a 4 out of 5. Hustle's a 4 out of 5. Vibe is a 4 out of 5. And success is a 3 out of 5.
Not bad, man. I would say that's pretty good across the board there.
I'm feeling good, man. I'm ready. I'm prepared. I did my research. I learned my lesson from my solo episode about how not to over research and how to,
leave the graphs out. Did you put any graphs in there?
There's no graphs.
Okay,
there's no graphs, no math. You're gonna like this one.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure, man. No Japanese shit either, right?
No, actually, there is not.
Oh well, yeah. I'll be a son of a bitch.
The Divine Comedy is actually Italian.
Oh, worse. Good. Okay.
Well, it's not a whole lot of boopity boppity. That's just where it came from. But yeah, you'll see.
Okay. All right, that's fair. All right, I'll do I'm now prepared. I have my horoscope up like a good boy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Today, you may need to contact a lot of people, Cancer, but the process could be frustrating. People may not be home, messages might not be delivered, or your equipment might not work properly. They make pills for that.
They do.
Unless it's urgent, it might be better to wait until tomorrow to try to reach them. You could end up too stressed otherwise. Do I need to contact anybody? I don't feel like I need to contact anyone.
You've been in contact with like family and stuff recently, so
yeah, that's true. I mean, I got some stuff going on. I do need to contact some people about, but it's the weekend and you can't. So maybe they're right. I don't know.
Well, you get the notification today to deal with it tomorrow, I suppose.
Yeah, it was a boring horoscope. Just tell me to be patient.
Dude, oh man, I really hope we're not getting to that point where we have to like start paying for a better horoscope thing. 'Cause this shit's been pretty bad lately.
It's been pretty crappy. And I wonder, they have free readings. What's interesting is it says you could get free readings from these people on here. Look, Liz, Andrew, James. It's just like a bunch of like goth chicks basically on this website.
Yeah.
But it says free reading and then it says $6.49 a minute. That's not free.
Oh, it says here, first 3 minutes are free. And of course, I'm sure they're going to chat your fucking ear off to keep you going to almost $7 a minute. That's fucked up. I would just hang up on it. It's like, 3 minutes, bye.
Peace. Thank you.
Later, bitch.
Call me now. All right. Yeah. So that means, I didn't do my stars and I already exited. Dude, I'm so hungover. So if I remember correctly, my sex was a 2 out of 5. My hustle. No, what's the one to the right? My
hustle. Yeah.
Was a 3 out of 5. My vibe was a 4 out of 5, and my success was a 3 out of 5.
Okay. So rocking a hard average.
Yeah, pretty hard average when you take into consideration that 4 and 2. So whatever. I'll take a 4 vibe. It's fine.
Yeah, not a bad way to get into it because okay, now I can finally start talking about the subject because introduction's done. We're talking about Dante's Inferno today. This is, of course, the first book of the Divine Comedy, but
oh, it's a book? I thought we were talking about the video game the entire time.
Oh, well, funny enough, you can bring up that as much as you want. The video game does a phenomenal job of like translating and modernizing the story and turning it into like something else, obviously with heavy artistic interpretation and license. But dude, the game is, did you play through it?
No, I was just making a joke that didn't land because apparently it fits.
Yeah, no, the game is great. They did their fucking research, dude. I was actually in my breaks and during research was like watching like clips from the video game and stuff, and like, holy shit, man, they read it. They definitely like I said, obviously they take a bunch of artistic licenses and stuff, but they get it right.
Well, good for them, man. Good for and they say video games are bad for society. No, they could be educational.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to be a surgeon by playing one of those surgeon games, and I'm pretty sure I could walk into any hospital and save somebody's life.
Surgeon Simulator, huh?
Yep.
Good. Well, as I said, obviously the game does take a lot of license, and particularly turning it into the story into an action game. So obviously, in the actual book, you are not a Crusader knight who gets stabbed and has to literally rip the Grim Reaper's scythe out of his hands to dive into hell to save your girlfriend because you cheated on her while on the crusade. That's how the game starts. This story is nothing like that.
I kind of wanted to now, though. Can you edit it?
No,
It's been
Play the
long enough.
game.
It's been long enough now, right, where we can edit this poem, right?
No, they did play the video game. If you want the cool action packed beat 'em up, slash 'em up, which is I do recommend, play the video game. Honestly, if you find all this stuff boring, play the game. They do a great job of like not only telling the story but making it cool and interesting. But like I said, with license, because as we'll come to find, the actual book itself was written with purpose. Like it wasn't just written as a way to be like, oh, here's my fucking grandiose idea about how I think the afterlife is. The whole story itself is like very extremely politically charged. And Dante Alighieri, who wrote the story or the poem, it's a poem. It's like Beowulf, like an epic poem, kind of, right?
Right, like a big ass poem that basically turns into a story, like a whole ass story.
Right.
Now, coincidence: Alighieri rhymes with Mussolini. Is that good or bad for us?
I don't think it. That's a pretty that's a stretch of a rhyme, and no, I don't think it matters. This was written in like 1312.
Oh, okay. So long before World War II.
Very much so. This is considered medieval literature.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Jesus.
just making sure I cover all the I know what I'm. Okay.
Yeah, feel like I said, we're going into a historical classic here. I'm learning just as much as I go. A lot of this shit is going to be it's more of my dumbed down because I need to be explained things like I'm 5. So I dumbed it down to a way that I felt I understood it best. Just as a forewarning, we're not going into every single detail because at that point we might as well be a history podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're close encounters of the podcast kind. We don't give a shit about that stuff. We just want to go into the fun stuff, the cool things, right?
Yeah, that's for fucking nerds.
So this is just the story. We're going into the story. We're going to kind of glide past a lot of like the, analysis. There's not going to be a whole lot. We're more going into what is Dante's hell? What does it include? And not just what the video game did, but what is actually described in the poem itself. So that's kind of what we're going to have looking forward today. It's going to be more of a narrative. It's going to be more of like, we're going to see exactly what the fuck is happening to these damned souls.
So for those of you out there who think that sinning is fun, think again. All right.
The cautionary tale.
Well, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to hear this. I'm sure the listeners are excited. Remember, I'm learning right there with you guys. So this is one of the few times that Nick's going to have his notebook out. Okay.
This is one of those take notes if you want to. If you feel the need to. Like I said, all this shit's pretty fucking dated. Pretty sure hell doesn't work this way, but it might. Maybe he got it right. But the story, well, we'll get into it. So before anything, welcome back. Thank you for joining us in what I am an episode. Like I've said, I've been so excited to dive into the Divine Comedy. I think the afterlife is insanely interesting, as you've probably discovered the fact that I've spearheaded pretty much all of our afterlife episodes, I think.
It's because I couldn't be fucked to do this kind of research. I have the attention span of like a Cocker Spaniel. Okay. So it's very difficult for me unless it's alien or cryptid related. It's really hard for me to just sit there and read stuff. Whereas you, on the other hand, you're studious and you're kind of a nerd, right? So that's
True.
good,
It works out, and I can rationalize doing this episode because depending on your faith, the afterlife could be considered something supernatural.
Exactly. And also I was busy, so I couldn't do it. But but that's a perfect timing for you to do this. I know you've been chomping at the bit to do this shit, so. Right.
And there was a part of me that wanted to spend more time on it, but also like I did the best I could with, other responsibilities, but I hope that this will be a good enough kind of a like overview. Like I said, we're not going like deep into this subject. We're going through the story. It's simplified, and we'll just take you through a journey of what hell is like, what they thought hell was like in the 1300s.
Woohoo! Yeah, all aboard the train to hell, people, because there are, from what I've been told by Tasker, there are multiple stops. So
there are many. So as you know, Nick has been a busy boy, so this is in fact a Professor Tasker episode. It's kind of like my solo one, except Nick's here.
Yeah, so just don't mind me. I'll just be in the corner fapping.
So if you hear some like squishy noises, that's because Nick went too hard and, he ripped the skin.
Yeah, and then I started looking at my bussy like it was dinner.
Just an average day in the middle of nowhere, huh? Must be nice. Must be nice with such little surveillance. So, as you might imagine, I will be taking the reins for today's flow of information. Today's subject, as you know, is something I've been itching to tackle. And now that I finally had the time to dig my nails into it, we're going to do it. We will wade into one of the most famous and detailed descriptions of the afterlife in history. We have seen reverberations of this tale everywhere. And many people base sort of their fictional account of the after, because fiction loves talking about the afterlife, but this is like the big one, the one that really first just laid it out. You know, normally the afterlife was a really vague idea. This one just laid it out. We briefly touched on the burning flames of hell in our Satan 3-part series from last year. So for now, though, we will return to the infernal depths of torture, agony, fire, ice, and blood as we read an abridged narrative by yours truly of the first part of Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. It will be a journey of two poet bros through the fires of hell itself. This is Inferno, Part 1.
Beautiful, man. You described my basement perfectly.
Somehow I had a feeling you're going to relate to a lot of what's going on in this story.
It's a little eye-opening.
Yeah. And I will say, if any of you are worried, like, oh, what, it might not be that, there is a lot of fucking torture in this. There is a lot of unpleasant things going on to people. And it might not be as gruesome as some of the things you might have seen, but I would say there's definitely a lot of you're not going to want to be here. This is not a fun place to be. Inferno is, or hell, even the 1300s kind of sucks.
Hey, fair enough. Now, one question before we get into this. Now, it is called, you said, The Divine Comedy. Is this like a Judd Apatow group kind of is this like a dark comedy? Like, I don't know, fucking a dark comedy or something.
The medieval Hangover.
Yeah, what is this? What kind of a comedy like, is it improv? Are they doing like observational?
It's not the title comes from something that I will actually get into right now. There's a little bit of a story about why it's called The Divine Comedy, because you make a good point. It's not very funny. It's actually not funny at all. It's a very allegorical tale. It's a very serious story. And let me get into this introduction about it, and you will find, I feel, that all these answers will be answered.
All right, I'll take your word for it, man. But I'm going to be thinking Judd Apatow the whole time until you prove me wrong. Okay?
Did I say your answers will be answered?
Yes.
Good start. Okay. So, first, of course, I would like to do the brief overview of the Divine Comedy as a whole before we dive into the fun stuff. The meat and potatoes, as Nick might say.
The meat and potatoes, a.k.a. my junk.
Yeah, that is the street name you've grown to become accustomed to.
Yeah, I've shortened it, though, to the Slim Jim and Fingerling potatoes because of the size difference.
Oh, I can only get so hard, my friend. So, Dante Alighieri completed all 3 parts of the Divine Comedy, or as it is known in Italian, Divina Commedia.
You sound like you were just hanging out in Venice, man. That was beautiful.
Thank you. But it was done over the span of 12 years. He began in 1308, and the Divine Comedy was finished in 1320, 1 year before his death in 1321. I thought that was going to be really badass. Like, oh, his final piece was all about the afterlife. It was not. He actually, I think, had 3 or 4 more publications before he finally died. He was a busy boy.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Why the fuck did it take him 12 years to do this, and then he just cranked out 4 in 1 year?
Well, it's because this is a very extensive piece, and there's, as we'll come to find, is if you were to be a scholar to go in and research this and study it as like a whole body with analyses and all, it's a pretty fucking thoroughly made masterpiece. It's considered actually wanted to be one of the finest masterpieces of literature ever created. So he took his time with it. He wanted to make it good, and boy, did he do it.
I thought he just had like Parkinson's or something, and every time he scribbled, he had to. Because back then you didn't have erasers, right? You just had to like start over. So I thought maybe every time he fucked it up with his little shaky Michael J. Fox hand, he had to start it over.
Maybe that happened. I don't know. But also too, the last couple things he released were like short essays and short poems. This is like might as well be a novel with how long it is.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
Mm-hmm. So also too, he was going through a lot of shit in his life. One of the big things, and actually something I think is important to point out, we're not going to go super deep into Dante's life. That's just going to take way too fucking long. But at some point, shit was not good in Florence, his home city, and he ended up getting exiled.
What did he do? What could you have done in 1300s Florence to get exiled? You must have had to done some crazy shit.
It's some fucking complicated bullshit. Like I said, it's just complicated politics. And I'm going to glide past a lot of that because that's such a big discussion in itself. It's like not even really worth bringing up here. Like,
yeah,
it's just, like I said, I wish I had a simple way of, oh, he fucked the magistrate's wife. I don't even know if they had magistrates there. I'm just making shit up. Who knows? But they didn't like him and they kicked him out and he lost fucking everything. So he was also kind of going through some rough spots in his life too.
Okay, well, that sucks. Maybe back then it was easy to get kicked out of towns if you didn't have sex with children. So maybe he was like, I'm good. And then they're like, get the fuck out of here. What do you think we are, animals, you know?
Oh, yeah, they didn't give a fuck as long as you didn't question the church and let them do whatever. Because this is back then when the church fucking ran shit.
Yeah, that's very true, especially in Italy.
Oh, yes, indeed. So the Divine Comedy, in a nutshell, is an Italian narrative poem split into 3 parts: Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. Paradiso, I mean. No I in there. And it stars a younger version of Dante himself as he is guided through hell, purgatory, and heaven in an allegorical tale about the acknowledgement of sin, paying penance, and finding the path to God. So it's actually not sacrilegious at all.
Ave Maria.
That is a good theme song for this episode. Beautiful. So the Divine Comedy, as a total, is 14,233 lines long, and each part consists of 33 cantos. There's an introductory canto that brings the total up to 100 total. A canto is basically just a way to divide up poetry, kind of like how a paragraph would an essay. It is the first poem to utilize a 3-line rhyming verse scheme known as terma rima, which Dante actually created for the Divine Comedy. The number 3 is a major motif in both the structure and the story of the poem, as you might imagine, coming from the fact of the Holy Trinity and that whole idea, which is extremely prevalent in Christian Catholic mythos. The Divine Comedy has a heavy influence from medieval Roman Catholic theology, Greek mythology, and especially the work of a Thomas Aquinas, the author of the Summa Theologica, also just known as the Summa, which is in itself basically a structured guide to the reasoning behind the church's beliefs when it came to God, creation, man's purpose, Christ, and the sacraments. And it is most famous for its quote-unquote 5 ways, or the 5 arguments that Aquinas makes in favor of the existence of God. It's basically one big theological handybook of this is why the church believes what it does, and it basically tries to just prove it.
Huh. Now, where in this handy book does it talk about the ripe age for an altar boy? Riddle me that.
That's probably you find those in the notes in between the
the margins.
The margins, yeah, that's probably in the margin notes that they happened to wipe out before the publication.
Yeah, they just did it themselves. They're just like, hey, they'll just pass it. Word of mouth.
Yeah, oh my god, nice choice of words there.
Thank you.
But the Divine Comedy is actually set to draw so heavily from the ideas found in the Summa that some even describe the Divine Comedy as simply the Summa in verse. So a lot of inspiration here, he didn't just come up with this shit by himself. He took a lot of heavy inspiration and just turned it into a cool, fun poem story.
Interesting, creative, okay.
Like any art, every great artist steals. So the divine part of the title, Divine Comedy, was actually not originally present in the time of publishing. It was actually added in by Giovanni Boccaccio. boccaccio. I don't know. Later on, to better describe, as you'll find out, this is Italian, which is very close to Spanish, which I'm Hispanic, so I might lean more towards the Spanish accent. So my apologies to anybody Italian listening and getting very upset with me right now.
Yeah,
doing my best.
Those Italians and their weird pronunciations, man. You put two C's together and it makes a ch sound. Like, what the fuck is that all about?
Yep. In America, we consider that backwards.
Yes, we do. And you should be ashamed of yourselves.
I should. No, they should. We'll see. We're all going to be ashamed. The first time the full title in Italian, Divina Commedia, was first actually seen in 1555, very much a couple hundred years after Dante's death. The original title was simply, in Italian, Commedia, which means comedy. That's all it was called. It was just released comedy by Dante Alighieri. Surprisingly, though, that title, Commedia, not Commedia, that's because it's different, because it's not in traditional Italian, but it's actually using a Tuscan dialect. That fact right there is actually extremely important on why it is called the Divine Comedy. And I'm going to explain right now. The reason it is just called comedy, despite the Divine Comedy really not being very funny at all, we have to look how literature was classified back in the day. Originally, there was only two main genres: tragedy, which at the time simply meant it had a sad ending, or comedy, which at the time only meant that it had a happy ending. The ha-ha context hadn't quite taken root yet. A comedy was basically, it's just something less serious with a happy ending. So you can kind of think, tragedy, comedy, those two masks for the theater arts, the happy face and the sad face. That's why that's the symbol of the theater arts, because those were the only two genres back then. Yep. So comedies were not exclusively defined as the haha, make me laugh ordeal. However, different developed nations generally had their own rules about what made something a tragedy or comedy, so defining something by a genre was fairly loose. The history of defining classical comedy versus ha-ha comedy is actually extremely complicated, because they did both exist simultaneously. So let's push that to the side. Let's just focus on what all that meant for Italian poetry. Back then, poems could only be defined as one of two things: high poetry or low poetry. High poetry was always written in Latin. Latin is an elevated and refined language that required an education. And it generally, when you're going for high poetry, it tackled more serious and deep subject matters. So it was basically, in a sense, a tragedy. Low poetry was meant for entertainment. It's fun and it's for the boys. It was written in the language of commoners and always had a happy ending, because low poetry was just for fun and for parties. High poetry was meant to make some deep philosophical points. Low poetry is for fun.
Okay, so that I'm glad you cleared that up, because when you first said high poetry and low poetry, I automatically assumed high poetry was just like good poetry, like fancy shit, and that low poetry was like, there once was a man in Nantucket, and he met a girl and who had a butt and she said fuck it, like some dumb shit like that. So now I'm glad that you pointed that.
Yeah. Well, and funny enough, there was people who thought that way, though. High poetry was good poetry. Low poetry was bad poetry. Yes, it was fun and entertaining, but it doesn't stimulate the mind. It's not for intellectuals. That's for dumb people. And that was sort of the prevailing attitude. So a little pretentious.
Very pretentious, yes. Well, but what more would you expect from Italians, though, huh?
I suppose. But this is where Dante comes in. He chose the title Commedia, which kind of sounds like chlamydia now that I say it.
It does sound like chlamydia. He's like, hey, wow, that's an old disease.
That it is. Dante chose the title Commedia, or comedy, since technically it does have a happy ending. It does follow the form of a regular comedy. But it is a huge break in tradition, because the subject matter was extremely serious, covering life, death, sin, and redemption. To top it all off, the entire poem and the title is written in the Tuscan vernacular, which at the time is considered a vulgar commoner's language, not Latin, and not even in traditional Italian. It is written in the Tuscan dialect, which is at that time was considered low as fuck. So the reason why Dante went with the title comedy was to give one huge middle finger to the form and tradition at the time. Fuck y'all and your fucking pretentious ideas. I'm going to write a fucking high poem in low poetry form. That's basically why he called it that. It was a very ballsy and confident move at the time. He was basically the first person to ever do that successfully. And on top of that, it made the story a lot more accessible because guess what? You didn't have to be educated to read it. Every common man could read the story.
Huh. So wait, so this was written in the Tuscan dialect, you said, right?
Yes.
The Tuscany, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's dirt people. Like they're saying this is like a dirt person poem, right? That you read and you did research on, and it's meant for people, scum of the earth.
I wouldn't go so far to say it's meant for the scum of the earth, but if the scum of the earth wanted to read it, they could.
Look how progressive this Dante guy is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, he was a cool dude. Well, he was a salty bastard, as we'll come to find, but yeah, he actually, and it's funny enough because obviously the story of Inferno is that part is him walking through hell. And as we'll come to find, he actually injects some very real people that the real Dante very much did not like and made them fucking suffering in different circles of hell.
Cool. Hey, do what you want to do as an artist, man. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, you'll come to find there's definitely a tinge of fan fiction in here. There's definitely, you can tell.
Brother.
He definitely kind of wrote the story to pander to himself a bit, as we will come to find as we jump through it.
He doesn't start talking about Pokemon and shit, right?
No, Pokemon was definitely not invented back then.
Okay.
So obviously there's a lot more we can discuss about the structure, the themes, the numerology, the legacy, and all that stuff. But we got to get into the gruesome bits. We're already about over a half hour in, and we haven't even started talking about torture yet.
Yeah, where is the torture? Dude, I feel like Obama when I first came into office. Where's Guantanamo Bay, and how do I shut it down? You know what I mean?
Well, if that's how you feel, I'm hoping that those feelings will be put to rest, because you can kind of see why it's called the Divine Comedy. It was just a big middle finger to the form. It's Dante being like, hey, I'm going to write a fucking amazing poem, but I'm going to do it in the language of the commoners, because fuck you. That's why.
Yeah. My man, dude, that's pretty punk, dude. Did this guy found Black Flag? What's going on here?
He might have, or at least maybe an ancestor, as far as we know.
Awesome.
We don't know. Funny how bloodlines work. So, as you know, covering every single detail would have taken multiple episodes. You might as well just read an audiobook if you want the whole story. We're given the narrative. Like I said, we're going into what happens. We're not doing any super deep analytical take on this. We just want to know the story. We want to see some torture. We want to see some blood. So if you are ready, make yourself as cozy as possible.
All right,
and let's begin.
I'm gonna tuck. I'm tucking right now. I'm pretty cozy now. Okay.
All right. So here we go. We begin with a miserable middle-aged Dante who has lost his way and found himself in a dark and spooky forest. Dante has a lot on his mind in the bit of a midlife crisis, if I may. Keep in mind, this is a big, complicated poem. There's multiple translations of it. It's incredibly hard to read. So this is sort of what I pictured in my mind's eye and wrote it as such. So if there's inaccuracies, it's to be expected. So just so you know.
Hey, nobody yell at Tasker. He did his best, damn it. All right. I wouldn't read it. So he did it.
Yes. So consider it more of like a layman's summary of what happens. So Dante is walking through the forest. He's having a bit of a midlife crisis. He's at the time, when you were in your 30s, that was considered very midlifey, fuck, I'm starting to get old. What the fuck am I doing with my life? How did I end up here? I've lost my way, both spiritually and also I don't know where the fuck I am. That's sort of the mentality we're dealing with here. He stops for a minute to gather his thoughts about what he has done and where he might be going, which is supposedly supposed to be symbolic about losing your way, as I said, spiritually. And that is the beginning of the story's allegory. Dante, as he walks through, he spots a sunny hill in the distance and begins to excitedly make his way toward it. I'm almost out. Freedom. That looks cozy as fuck. Nighttime's coming. That sunny hill is looking hella
enticing. It looks
enticing.
Yeah, like a nice cold beer or like a nice big booby.
Yeah, like a giant titty, warm and ready for suckling.
What are you, a pig?
Unfortunately.
What are you, like a farm animal?
Well, you mean to tell me you don't suckle a titty if you had the chance?
Not if there was milk coming out. I'm a grown ass man.
Well, that's a different story. I actually did read a story about, I guess, this husband and wife. They just had their first kid, and they were just starting to have sex again. And I guess he like grabbed her boob and just a bunch of milk splashed right onto his face.
Jeez, that's disgusting.
That just sounds such an odd experience.
There's a couple fetishes I will never understand, and to be fair, that's one of them. All right, I know they're out there. It is fucking gross. And all feet. Those are two I just don't get.
Yeah, and it's almost like, I mean, I'm with you. I'm the same. I don't really agree with either of those, but like, it's just kind of funny to me how it's like, you would think mankind would have a bit more of a thing for like woman's breast milk because it's like what gave us, vitamins, minerals, and let us live as children. But no, it's actually considered to be pretty gross.
It's because of it's the social aspect, right? It's because we used to have it from our mommies. And so whenever we think of breast milk, we think of our mommies. And there's one thing you don't want to be thinking about when you're looking at this is your mommy.
That actually makes a lot of sense because there is a more motherly context to it. And unless you have a really deep like mom kink, at which place you might need to reconsider some life choices there. Yeah, it's not a very sexy connotation.
No, get them cauterized,
Yeah, that's gross. Let's not do that. So anyways, Dante sees the sunny titty and he's like, he's jazzed about it. And I shit you not, this is actually what happens. A fucking panther jumps out of nowhere to the bushes and blocks his path. And he's pooping his Pampers. He's like, fuck. And he freaks out, understandably, and and has to run back to the forest. He's dejected and is now back into the deep part of the woods. He, bam, encounters a fucking lion and a starving she-wolf who's looking at him like he's roast beef on Christmas Eve. So he's having kind of a bad day.
Is this the Jungle Book? What's going on here, man?
Wouldn't be surprised if Jungle Book might have taken some influence from here.
There's a lot of big cats in here.
There is a lot of big cats, and they're all looking at Dante, and he's looking pretty fucked right now. So he manages to give him the slip, and is understandably pretty anguished now because it's like basically the sit down of like, I'm so fucked. Like, God damn it. Like, now I'm going to starve to death. Now I'm stuck here. These animals literally are not, it's just pretty much, it's looking like he's kind of sunk, like in the middle of a midlife crisis. That's a pretty bad, lineup of events, I'd imagine. That is until a figure calls out to Dante from a distance. They approach each other and Dante is delighted to see Virgil, a famous Roman poet who is long dead, beckoning to him. Now, this is, like I said, it's a bit of a fan fiction moment. The real life Dante is a real big fan of the real man, Virgil, who was a Roman poet. So he basically gets to meet like his fucking poetry hero. If you remember, they're both poets.
So this is like me writing a book about UFOs and putting myself as like Jacques Vallée's best friend. Is that what was happening right now?
That is 100% what is happening.
That's
right
cringy, man. That is some fan. This is. So you're telling me one of the greatest works, allegedly, in history is just something that I could find on modern day Wattpad or something as somebody's fanfic?
Yeah. I mean, if somebody on whatever that website is made a masterpiece and it was literally just about like, I don't know, him and Winston Churchill going on a political adventure together. Yeah, absolutely.
Look, if I was hanging out with Winston Churchill, I'd probably just go cigar shopping with the guy, but that's just
sounds like fun. But yeah, no, absolutely. Dante was a huge fan of him and made them super best friends because he's the fucking author. He can do whatever he wants.
Fair. That's fair.
So back to the story. Virgil tells Dante that he can save him from the forest, but if he wishes to follow him, he must venture into the afterlife. He said that it is not just a journey to bring him to safety, but that this journey will also help him to bring peace to his soul and with the crisis that he is currently having internally. Now, Dante is very excited at this point. His fucking hero has come out to the woods to not only save his ass, but they get to go on an adventure together. He's so fucking amped that probably very cringily screamed to the heavens, "Oh, muses, record these exploits. I want to fucking have all of this written down." That happens.
Yikes. That's a big yikes.
And that's sort of in the story, in the universe, is how this story is quote unquote written. It was not written by Dante. It was written by the muses who followed him throughout the journey, recording every step. Because as you might imagine, Dante in the universe of the Divine Comedy did not have pen and paper handy.
No, see, back in the day, they had to they took a hammer and chisel and scraped it into stones and animal bones and stuff. So I know that we passed this point, but there's something I just made a connection about. So I know you were talking about how the forest is like, and their way that getting to the sun, that sunny area is like getting back to spirituality.
Right,
and the forest is like darkness and not spirituality, I suppose. So does that mean that if those big cats, which are feminine in nature, right, as when we look at felines, right, we tend to think feminine. And yes, I said feminine, fight me, all right? I'm not going to say that they're like asexual or there's like one of the 72 other like different types of gender, whatever. Anyway, so big cats keeping him in the forest.
Yeah.
Are those like ladies? Like sin? Like is he like lust, like, you know, he wants to do them?
No, I think it's more symbolic of the ferocious nature of sin itself and how he's in a state of mind and a place where he cannot reach enlightenment. He's too blocked. And that's supposed to be like the blockade of like, hey, like you can't have this. You're not ready for it. You're not clean.
So not even the panther, right?
No,
not even the panther's a lady. Oh, it sucks.
I do not believe, like I said, if we really went into it, maybe, but I don't know about you, but I don't want to fucking have to read this shit again.
Oh, I haven't even read it once. I don't even plan on doing so. So no, I'll take your interpretation. I don't give a fuck. I just thought it was ladies.
That's kind of the point of this episode of like, this is a way to read the Dante's Inferno story without having to interpret shit. We're along for the ride. And that's kind of the whole point of this episode.
Yeah. Speculation.
So, hey, if you want to take that way, fuck yeah. There's we'll get a little bit more into when we get to the circle of lust. And actually there's something even, we won't get to that till part 2, but you'll come to find there's a guy who's pretty pissed off because he had a wife that was a little too lascivious, and that's what ended him in hell. So Dante, he's being a little cringe lord, screaming to the heavens and stuff. And Virgil at this point is like, okay, all right, man, like cool, chill, let's go. And so the poetry bros are formed. Dante and Virgil begin to walk through the woods. And as they walk for a while, reality starts to settle for Dante. His poetry idol literally came out of nowhere and is going to take him to the afterlife. And then we're going to start with hell. That seemed really badass for a second, but then it really dawned on him like, oh, fuck. Like, oh, shit. I'm going into hell. I'm going into the afterlife. What the fuck is going on? Like, it just, like any person, the rose-colored glasses fall, and he starts having second thoughts and brings up with Virgil. He's like, hey, man, like, I think you're fucking awesome. I don't know if I want to do this, man. Like, I think I might take my chances with the fucking panther to just I don't want to go to hell. Like, that sounds shitty. Long story short, Virgil basically tells him, stop being a bitch.
Yeah.
He gets pretty annoyed and is like, hey, calm the fuck down. But if you really need a little bit of comfort to get you through this, he tells him that this whole setup and the reason Virgil's even here to guide him is the will of heaven itself. More specifically, 3 holy women in heaven.
Right on.
Not a bad inspiration. What happened was...
well, not as many as the Muslims, right? Because they get like 72. And they haven't even been touched yet. Which means, guess what that means? Everybody's all excited about going to, if you're Muslim, right? They're all like blowing themselves up to get there faster. But
not all of them.
Well, I mean, a lot of them,
Not even that. Not even a lot of them. A very low percentage of them.
But, when they get there, they're like, I'm going to have sex with like 72 women. But they're virgins, right? So you're just having the worst sex of your life for like 72 times.
It takes a while to get good at it. It does take some practice. And when they're virgins, like, it's one of those things. It's it's not all it's cracked up to be, I can imagine.
Yeah, man, I just thought that's weird. Yeah, that's why I'd probably never go Muslim. Plus, I don't want to.
Well, I don't think that's a real deal. Who knows? I love that discussion of like who's right and who's wrong. Like in South Park, they were saying like, "Oh, the Mormons were right. You're all going to fucking hell." So I don't know. I have no answer because this is, like you said, the afterlife. We don't know. They could. I would be fucking. I will say I will be fucking pissed if I die, go up to wherever I end up, and they're like, "Well, you didn't fucking kill yourself for your religion, so sorry, eternal punishment."
Yeah, sorry. Too many infidels still alive on the planet.
If you fucking live it, I mean, fucking like Bin Laden's like the fucking guy. He's like, "Ha, bitch,
Got it."
You all thought I was evil, so which he is, but
So basically, if you guys are
regardless.
wondering what Tasker's saying, he's basically praising Osama bin Laden.
yeah, essentially beginning my jihad.
Oh, here. Okay, good. See, usually I say the shit that'll get us in trouble, but you, sir, you can get that isolated, and they're gonna be knocking on your door, man.
Every fucking episode. What is it from like last episode? What was it I said that could like that told people like kill themselves or something?
Something heinous.
Yeah, it's where they're gonna edit it all together to where my sentence is like, now everybody go and kill yourself. I am starting my jihad today.
That's great. Good for you. Hey, man. I don't know. I don't know any Muslim languages. So.
Yeah, good for you.
Arabic,
Yes.
different types of it. I don't know.
It's a deep subject. We're not even close to knowing anything about it. So therefore, I think let's set it aside for now.
I almost said shalom. That's Jewish.
That's definitely Hebrew.
Yeah, so that's wrong.
Okay. So in heaven, there are 3 women. One is an unnamed lady who is implied to be the Virgin Mary,
Nice.
who noticed, yes, Dante's struggle in the forest. So she decides to tell another holy lady, Saint Lucia, about it, who in turn tells another holy lady, Beatrice, who is also known as Dante's deceased lover. Beatrice, I believe, was his muse in outside, like the real Dante. Like Beatrice was a real person. So you'll come to find he references her a lot.
Good. So necrophilia in the fanfic. I'm okay. I like where this is going.
If you choose to take it that way. So when Beatrice heard of the story of like what's happening with Dante, obviously those two form a little committee like women do. Sorry.
Excuse you, sir. You're one of those guys, huh? You're one of those Weinstein guys, huh?
No, it was a low-hanging fruit, and I had to go for it. It's one of the like lowest effort jokes you could possibly make.
Well, you're
Obviously,
not wrong though.
It depends on the type of women. Where I grew up, yes, it is not a stereotype. It's just fact.
It's fact.
But-
They go to the bathroom together. They start like seeing who they're going to kick out of their group next, and who's next in line, and which guy has the smallest wiener. You know, it was always me, right? They would always be like, "Oh, Nick's got the smallest one. Oh, maybe we shouldn't hang out with Nick anymore then. Oh, now Nick doesn't have any friends." That was middle school, bro. That was just middle school.
I'm feeling a lot of passion coming from you on this subject.
Yeah, I'm hurt. So your joke hit a little deep because you're not wrong. It was sexist, but it wasn't wrong. All right.
Well, it's a whole hashtag not all women unless you're in a fucking homeowners association, in which case you deserve every bit of being made fun of.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I'll let that slide.
Fair enough. So basically, this little group, they're like, "Hey, let's help him out." And thus, Virgil was summoned to pull Dante out. And Dante here, and Virgil's basically telling Dante all of this, like, "Hey, this is why I'm here. This is why we're doing this journey. You got some lovely ladies in heaven that have your back, and we have the will of heaven on our side. You're gonna be fine." So Dante, not only excited to know, oh, thank fucking God, like my ladies in heaven, but also they're all rooting for me too, and I got heaven on my side. Like, okay, all right, let's do this. So Dante gets his nerve back, and they continue. They reach a portal arch marked with all sorts of ominous warnings and descriptions and heads up. But the most famous, written in Italian, is, and forgive me for fucking this up.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. Lasciate ogne. It sounds like Latin almost, but I'm okay. Like I said, okay. No, actually, you know what, Nick? Do you want to try it with your best Italian accent?
Lasciate ogne speranza voi centrete.
Way better than I was going to do it, but great job. The translation is more of how we might know it. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
Man, every time we get further into the story, and it just reminds me more of my basement. It's very uncanny.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse. It is gonna get. We're just getting started. So, scared but not deterred, Dante follows Virgil through the gates of hell. Dante and Virgil first arrive in what could be called the Vestibule of Hell. This is Circle Zero, basically, also known as like the Inferno, kind of like a lobby of sorts, like to the Hotel Hell, but fucking horrible.
Playing vaporwave, you just kind of sitting there, playing elevator music. Fuck yeah, dude.
Sounds like it. But unlike a typical hotel, like front lobby, this place is pretty big and immediately filled with the sounds of furious screams, piercing wails, and overall just general suffering.
Ow, 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 ow.
This sucks.
Shucks. Buddy, come on, man. Ow.
A lot of that. I think if you went there today, that's probably what you would hear more of. So, as they walk through, Virgil explains to Dante that here reside the uncommitted, who are unwanted by both heaven or hell. They're not pious enough for absolution, but not wicked enough for hell. Here we see people and the neutral angels who refuse to side with either God or Satan in the Great War, chasing after an uncatchable blank banner, all while being bit by flies and wasps. It's basically an existence of perpetual running and exhaustion and bug bites.
So it's like beginner hell. It's not purgatory. So it feels like because it says that they didn't choose sides in the war, so it's kind of neutral, right? But
right.
It's not purgatory though. It's technically a step below, like the one step below purgatory, where it's like the 0 level hell. It's like baby hell.
Exactly. No, this is definitely hell. Like this is in hell. It's just the 0th floor, basically. This area, because purgatory is for you're not quite good enough to make it to heaven, but we can work on it. And going through purgatory in this context and in this story is the process of cleansing yourself of sin so you're ready for heaven. So if you weren't wicked enough to make it into any of hell, you make it to purgatory.
Okay,
that's where most people end up. Most people don't go directly to heaven.
Oh, that's encouraging.
Yeah. And well, purgatory, that's a whole other thing. If some people they're there for an eternity, they never make it, but at least they have a shot, Whereas in hell, you don't have a shot. You're fucked. You're done.
Oh, man, bug bites forever.
Yep. And constantly running. And I mean, if you were not a fan of PE, it's basically running that mile, except you never stop. So, and you feel all the pain of being immortal too, while in hell. And the whole like irony here, and as you'll come to find, all these circles and punishments are supposed to have a kind of ironic twist, is they're chasing after a blank banner. They're chasing after, which are generally associated with loyalty or following a side. By following no side, you're chasing a side forever, essentially.
Got it. Okay, interesting.
So they continue to walk through it. And I can imagine, I picture it as, they walk through these arches and it's this big sort of like dark cavernous area where there's just all these people like running around. The Hell's Gym is basically kind of what this stage looks like. Covered with bugs, and I'm sure it's very humid because the bugs got to be happy,
Yeah, you know what? Just because you're in hell doesn't mean the bugs have to be, okay?
They got a job to do,
Yeah, they're technically employees. Tenured employees.
Exactly. So they continue forth, and where would this moisture and humidity come from?
The river. Oh, okay.
No. The river Acheron, where Charon, the ferryman, first notices that Dante is not dead and gives him a big ol' halt. What the fuck are you doing here, man? You're alive. Virgil says that they have the okay from heaven. So Charon, funny enough, just kind of shrugs it off. It's like, okay, good enough for me. And lets him hop aboard his boat, but not before giving him a pretty stern warning of, this might be a pretty bad idea. I'm like, all right, will of heaven. Okay. I mean, I can't argue with that. But man, if you want to turn around, you probably should.
This is just the story to the newest World of Warcraft expansion when your character goes to Bastion for the first time.
Okay, keep in mind, Divine Comedy was written in 1300. I think World of Warcraft stole from this.
Oh.
I'm glad to see some eye-opening moments for you. So aboard, and as you'll come to find, there's a lot of like Greek characters, which is interesting because it's mostly like this is supposed to be Christian, like, you know, Catholic Christian. But you'll find he does borrow a lot from a lot of different other mythos and stuff. And I just think it's just a cool, hey, it's cool. It's like a big, like, big old, what do you call it when a bunch of like famous actors get together and they form like one big cast?
An orgy.
No, that's what happens after they form.
Oh, an ensemble.
Ensemble, yes. This is basically just one big like ensemble story, like the ultimate like gathering of like mythos and stuff like that.
Fanfic. It's just a big ass fanfic.
It's a big fanfic, yeah. You can think of it like that. So they are aboard the ship with Charon, and they begin their trek across the Acheron. The ride is anything but luxurious. All around them is the sounds of gnashing teeth, tortured souls just now entering the mouth of hell, realizing now in that moment they have not made it to heaven, so they're not very happy about it. So there's basically, think of it as a big old boat, bunch of people are on it, and they're fucking pissed. And they're in pain, I'm sure. They're also simultaneously being hit by sudden raging earthquakes that ignite giant fire spouts all across them. And Dante now is realizing where the hell he actually is, pun intended, and becomes so overwhelmed, he passes out.
Wow, what a pansy.
You'll find Dante is a little bit of a wuss, but, you know, seeing all this shit in description as we're talking it now from our cozy air-conditioned homes, it doesn't sound that bad. But being in that moment, I could see it.
Yeah, he passes out, and he's already on a boat with a bunch of criminals, right? So it just kind of wakes up, and somebody looks at him and says, you're finally awake.
Yeah. I would not mind a Skyrim mod about all this. So Dante is knocked out for the remainder of the boat ride and is eventually carried off by Virgil after they finish crossing the Acheron. Dante is awakened by the sound of thunder. They have arrived at Limbo, also known as the first circle of hell, and it appears to stretch out before them as a great valley of the abyss. So
now that's interesting. That's very interesting to me because in pop culture, they usually refer to limbo and purgatory as interchangeable. So that's very interesting.
Oh, yeah. No, limbo is a part of hell here. It is not purgatory at all. Like I've said before, purgatory, you have a chance for heaven. If you're in Inferno, if you're in hell, any of these circles, you're here forever. There's no going back and there's no hope.
Oh, man, what a shame.
Yep, kind of sucks. But as you'll come to find out, this is actually the best place to be if you end up in hell. Virgil, after helping Dante up, leads him forward while explaining that here reside the people who were either born before Christianity was a thing, the unbaptized, virtuous pagans, or basically any good person who chose wrong. So if you're a chill guy and you just chose the wrong religion, this is where you end up. But you have to be a good guy.
So I'm a virtuous pagan, right? So I would probably go to Limbo.
If Christian hell is as he describes here, yeah, you'll end up in Limbo, which, as I will describe right in a second, isn't so bad.
Okay, cool.
So you might actually be okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see when we get to the other circles if you fill any of those descriptions. But so this is also a fun episode. It's like one of those online quizzes. Oh, which circle of hell will I end up in?
It's like Cosmopolitan magazine.
It is. It'll be fun. So Limbo, as I said, it's not so much of a torture, but more of a big, dark, rocky valley where it's actually there's streams, there's structures, there's castles. The reason it's considered to be a part of hell is the whole purpose is that it's basically an anti-heaven. The punished are living fairly decently, but the real punishment here is that you will never reach paradise. You're okay, but there's that better one, that for ecstasy forever, that's always just going to be out of your reach. That's basically the punishment here of choosing wrong. Is you're not being punished for being a bad person. You're being punished because you chose wrong. But hey, we all make mistakes. So you end up here where you just kind of just live out your days.
I could deal with that. Run down old castles and like rocky terrain. It just kind of seems like I live in like an old Universal movies monster terrain.
Honestly, yeah. And here resides Homer, Julius Caesar, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, Ptolemy, Diogenes. I can't get the guy who lived in like a barrel and was just like a piece of shit to everybody. But it was
Oscar the Grouch. Yeah.
Sure. Also, Virgil himself came from this circle. He was actually granted temporary leave in order to help Dante. As you will find out, the will of heaven carries a lot of weight in hell. But this place is basically filled with just a lot of really respectable people, scientists, poets, and so forth. And if you're an especially great thinker or great person, you get to live in the giant castle while everyone else basically just kind of chats and hangs out in a valley. That's basically how it works.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, pretty chill. Dante asks Virgil if it's possible to ever escape Limbo because it's such an in-between area. Virgil replies that, well, there was one time after Jesus was crucified, he came down to hell and pardoned Moses, Adam, Abel, Noah, Abraham, David, and Rachel, who's one of the biblical Jacob's wives, in an event that is known as the harrowing of hell. That was basically the only exception. He said Jesus Christ himself or God can pardon you if he so chooses, but that doesn't really happen. The only time that happened was during Jesus' crucifixion, which, as you all might know, was a pretty big fucking deal. Not something that's a exception he makes every now and again. That was a one-time deal, and only the big shots really got it.
Like Thanksgiving, when they pardon turkeys once a year, right?
Basically, except this was a once in an eternity kind of deal. Yep. So after some chit-chat with some of the denizens of Limbo, Virgil and Dante descend into a bit of a more cramped space as they continue forward. Before they can reach the next circle, they now have to get past Minos, a serpentine man-like creature who is the one giving the damned souls their sentences. So if you're somebody who's ending up in Limbo, you basically walk up, he's like, yeah, just turn around. You're right here. And you're like, oh, okay. The way it works.
Well, serpentine, huh?
Yes.
Reptilian, maybe?
As you'll come to find in part 2, there's a lot of reptiles that you might be very interested in.
Yikes. Okay. Very interested.
Oh, yes. So Minos' deal in this story works kind of like just a DMV desk. He just hangs out there, looks all pissed off, and deals with an endless line of souls waiting for the judgment. But fortunately for Minos, judging souls is pretty easy. All that happens is a soul approaches him, his tail will automatically spin around, corresponding, and the amount of times it spins around corresponds to the circle of hell in which they will be sent to. So he's basically just kind of chilling all day, letting his tail do all the work.
Sounds pretty cool, but I mean, so do we, like, if I was in line, do I have to count the tails, or does he count and then tell us?
I think it's up to you if you want to know where you're going. I think the tails swirl, and once they stop, you just get launched over to where you're supposed to be.
Oh, it's like a formality.
Yeah, basically. It's sort of, you can count it, and it's sort of like, I guess the tail swirls signals like the powers of hell that may be to take you to where you want to go. So yeah, you can make it a surprise for yourself, or kind of get an idea of where you're going.
I'd make it a surprise. Because the split second of me knowing where I'm going, if it's like the worst one, I don't want to know until I get there and I'm already being like skinned alive and sodomized, so.
Yeah, something like that. Surprisingly, not a whole lot of sodomy in here, because actually sodomy is a sin that gets you into hell to begin with.
Right. So I figured they'd just do more of it, right? But
No,
I mean, that would be what I would do if I was running hell.
Yep, but you're not. So, and as you'll find out, and we'll get there to like towards the end more, but hell in a weird way is actually run by God.
What?
Yeah. This version of hell is essentially run by God. This is all the punishments were his design.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of a twist, because we all thought Satan was running the shots here, and that he's like, the big boss running the whole game of, oh, you will find, as we'll get to it. I don't want to spoil it too much, but we'll get to it.
Okay.
So as Dante and Virgil approach, Minos surprisingly doesn't give them a whole lot of trouble. Keep in mind, remember, will of heaven, that holds some heavy weight. So most of them are just kind of like, don't want to fuck with that. Don't want to fuck with heaven. Don't want to fuck with God's decree. If that's what you say, go the fuck ahead. So he does note that Dante, as a living mortal, can die in here. And if he dies in here, there's a pretty high chance he won't ever be able to escape. So Virgil steps forward, saying that destiny is what allowed Dante to be here and will guide them forward. So Minos, long story short, basically just shrugs and says, all right, well, your funeral, homie, not my fucking problem. So pretty easy obstacles so far. They pass by, and the sounds of shrieking and wailing begin to grow louder as Dante and Virgil enter a large space plagued by an eternal storm. They have now arrived at the second circle, lust.
Oh, pour some sugar on me.
And it's an interesting note that you brought up with the sodomy point. Just because you're lustful, that does not mean that you just get eternally butt fucked for the rest of your life.
Ah, damn it.
Quite the contrary. The punishments here are supposed to be ironic and a twist on what led you to commit the crime. It's not an overindulgence of the crime you committed. So the punishment here with the giant storm is based on the idea of being carried away by lust and what it does to you. The lustful are literally carried and tossed violently through the air by the winds, circling, lots of vertigo, I'm sure, and just being pelted by cold as shit rain. Like, it's not fun. You're just being launched through the air eternally. And probably naked, probably cold and wet.
And rock hard. Yeah. Buddy.
For some, possibly. For some, possibly. Like I said, it's supposed to represent lustful impulses and placing self-indulgence above reason. And now they are literally being carried away for eternity. Now, Virgil, being the good guide that he is, points out some of the more famous residents are being launched around through the air, including Cleopatra, Helen of Troy, and Achilles. He notes to Dante that a lot of knights and royalty tend to be here. That's pretty typical. Distraught and curious about the tragedy of it all, Dante asks permission to speak to some of the damned, to which Virgil grants. Dante politely calls out to a cloud of bodies that are nearing by, and one soul responds, I imagine, as it's being flung towards him. And I kind of picture it like almost like he's like, hey,
yeah,
how are you doing this? What up?
Dude, I was picturing the same thing, just going in a circle. Hey, so what brings you into the second circle?
You're alive and in hell. That's a crazy thing. Why are you here?
Oh, man, I'm so hard right now. This is fucking...
Best nut of my entire life. Something like that. Picture it as you will. It's sort of vague. Like I said, it probably is more detailed than I'm telling it, but that's kind of what I took of it with my short attention span of reading like the archaic way it was translated because of the archaic time it was written. So the figure that Dante starts talking to is named Francesca da Rimini, and she tells Dante her story of how she had an affair with her political marriage husband's brother. She and him had spent a scandalous afternoon together reading the romantic tale of Lancelot and Guinevere, and a story of forbidden love, which is something that those two related to very closely. As the book got more saucy, the two got caught up in the heat of passion and began kissing very passionately.
Oh.
Unfortunately, Francesca's husband got wind of what was happening, pun intended, and decided to give them a little surprise by stabbing them to death in a bedroom. As she finishes her story, the cloud of people that she's being flung around with begins to waft and flies away. Dante is fucking distraught by the story. It just hits a nerve with him super hard. He basically at this point is like wailing to Virgil about how the worst part is they're basically being punished for just pursuing true love. And that's really fucking sad and cruel. Like, that's terrible. That she didn't even want to be married to the guy, but because the law of marriage with Christianity and Catholicism, if you're doing anything outside of that, big no-no. And Dante's now at this point coming to grips of how unfair this whole deal is. And in that grief and with the reality of everything continuing to set with him, he passes out a second time.
Oh my God. Is this guy anemic?
He might be at this point.
What's going on
That might be
here?
a part he left out. Yeah, he basically blacks out again.
Huh.
And at this point, I should note that this is obviously, technically, Limbo's the most benign circle. But in terms of actual punishment, this is the most benign and easiest one. Since the sin of lust technically involves mutual interest and a willing second participant, it's not a completely self-centered sin, thus has the lightest punishment of them all.
Interesting. Very, very interesting indeed, my friend.
Not bad. Good accent. So, Dante wakes up, now in the third circle, gluttony. Very likely, he was just carried by Virgil, who I think at this point is kind of getting annoyed of this. I was like, God, this fucking dude just can't take it.
He just drops like a sack of potatoes every time something bad happens.
Exactly. But I'm sure at that point, Virgil's also like, yeah, it is hell, and this is a lot to take in. So I think he has a little bit of sympathy. So he doesn't get like bitchy with him. Dante, when he awakes, notices that there is still a raging storm here, but instead of water, the sky is now raining with an icy sludge and all kinds of gross shit. As he and Virgil enter, first and foremost, they run into Cerberus, the classic three-headed hellhound, who is in the middle of a lovely afternoon of tearing and clawing at the screaming spirits around him. Cerberus notices the two poets, drops what he's doing, and begins to approach them menacingly. In a bit of an unclimactic finish, Virgil picks up a piece of the mud under them and offers it to Cerberus as a type of snack. And Cerberus is more than happy to munch on it. So, as he's chewing, those two see their opening and run past them and continue into the mouth of Gluttony. And here, the landscape is entirely covered with a putrid mud-like substance, and the damned are stuck lying down all throughout it. It's like a big field of like sewage and just a bunch of people laying in it, essentially, is what is the visual we're working with here. Skies of dark clouds, I imagine, with like a slight yellow tinge. It's basically sewage is falling all of them. It's an existence of smelly filth, cold, and pain. Now, the point in being stuck in the mud symbolizes the empty coldness of being selfish and overindulgent. This punishment also applies to people who are addicts. So Virgil and Dante continue past the bodies until a man named Chaco sits up and begins to speak to Dante. He introduces himself and points out that they are both from Florence. Florence, Italy, of course. Shocked but intrigued, Dante and he decide to have a brief political discussion about the matters of their hometown. And Dante gives Chaco the grace of updating him on recent events. As I kind of stated before, this shit goes in much bigger detail in the poem itself. I'm sure a lot of us don't really care about the politics of the 1300s Italy. So let's move forward. Dante asks Chaco if he knows any of his deceased friends who might be up in this area, because Dante, yeah, he's got some dead friends. This is back in 1300s. People die in young ages.
Yeah.
Chaco replies that he does recognize the names that Dante brings up, but they certainly aren't here, and that they are very likely in the deeper bowels of hell, where blacker spirits even deeper reside.
Excuse me? Excuse me, bro? Blacker spirits, huh?
That part was a quote. That's just the words they used in the poem.
I believe it's African American or spirits. Okay.
My fucking bad. So, the final words Chaco has to Dante are to remember his name, and Chaco slinks back into the mud. Dante and Virgil continue on in their business. As they walk further, Dante then asks Virgil if the punishments of hell will be affected by the final judgment when it inevitably happens. Virgil has an ominous reply, saying that, in fact, hell's punishments are far from perfect. And in the final judgment, which is run by perfect authority, hell's punishments will not cease, but will simply be perfected. Kind of a vague and creepy answer, if you ask me.
Wait, so he's saying that this isn't even the final form yet, basically, of the punishment. So they're like, oh, we got some stuff in the works.
Yep.
Huh.
And once final judgment comes, it's supposed to be perfection all across the board, hell included. So it could be, who knows what that means? It means, hey, it might get worse, it might get a little bit better, or it might get horribly worse.
Interesting. Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This isn't even the final form, as you said. Good way to put it. As they reach the end of the third circle, they come across Plutus, a demon, and also the Greek god of wealth. He yells a mysterious incantation, Pape Satan, Alepe. It's English translate. Yep.
Is that Latin?
I think it's Italian.
Okay. I was going to say, because you said you would never read Latin on this podcast. So I thought you went back on your word or something. But no, we're good.
Nah. I'm pretty sure it's Italian. I could be completely wrong. I think I looked it up and then forgot. So if I'm wrong, feel free to let me know in the Discord. Its English translation is, to this day, a point of conjecture. People are not really 100% sure, but widely agreed upon, it's either an expression of anger or the beginning of some sort of threat. Because, as it's translated, Virgil cuts him off mid-diss and basically tells him to go fuck himself. And they walk by without incident.
Excuse me. We're here on business. And he just walks past. Like, what the hell?
Basically, yeah. And supposedly the context here is that Virgil cuts him off before he can finish. So it's either Virgil's just that much of a big, bald badass, or he realizes that maybe they were about to be cursed and stops him before he can finish it.
It does kind of sound like a curse.
Mm-hmm. Very much well might be, but like I said, nobody's really confirmed it. I mean, obviously Dante died a year afterwards, so he never really like clarified it. So it's just kind of an interesting little bit that scholars are still kind of like talking about. So those two, Virgil and Dante, continue past, and the storm around them begins to subside as they cross into the fourth circle, greed, which is known for the avaricious or prodigal. Big spenders or the fucking hoarders, basically.
I didn't know that. Oh, it sucks, man. Being a hoarder, you can't win. You can't win. Dude.
Yep. No matter what. As you'll find, it's a lot easier to make it into hell than it is to make it into heaven. That's
Yikes.
what I found in this story. So the fourth circle appears as a giant, vast, ring-shaped ditch. And in there, the souls are pushing heavy weights, which I'm assuming are big boulders, very painfully and very angrily. Now, the way this works is that the souls push their weight forward as they try to go through the circle, because obviously circle is eternal. You have to walk through it. But as they walk forward, inevitably, they crash into another soul who is walking in the opposite direction of them. They get pissed off, talk some shit, and then turn around, only to again bump into somebody going the opposite way. Rinse and repeat, and that is their eternity. But there's a kicker. They're organized single file, so they keep, bumping into each other. But the thing is it's organized with hoarder, spender, hoarder, spender, hoarder, spender, in that order. So when they smack into each other, not only are they just fucking pissed like they're on the 405 in LA, but it's somebody of a complete opposite ideology. So a hoarder bumps into a spender. Spender's like, you fucking piece of shit, hoarder. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, why have all that wealth and not do it? And hoarder's like, oh, yeah, you primpy dumbass fucker. Like, yeah, oh, Mr. Oh, I just spend everything. Oh, and so yeah, they literally just have an argument of philosophy. Like,
yeah, how's all that money treating you now in your bank? You can't even use it. Oh, yeah, well, how's your Bugatti that you bought, asshole? You can't even use it either.
Yep, simply put, that's exactly what happened. Now, Virgil takes a moment to mention that the circle is a result of men rejecting the true, unbiased nature of fortune, and laments for a moment in a long monologue about the curse of those who they just basically how people curse fortune, even though they have whatever they need. So we've all been there. Yeah, we have a roof under our heads, but fuck, man, that meal was $12 and it did not taste like a $12 meal. Fuck me and fuck my life.
Yeah, some of us more than others, but yes.
But the whole point is basically saying, like, yeah, like fortune was created on Earth as a way to, get people what they need. But people are not fucking grateful about it. And that's kind of like a big, like, philosophical thing they get into at length in a very confusing and hard to read couple paragraphs. So, yeah, and in short, that's kind of the discussion him and Dante and Virgil have, and they continue walking. But Virgil also adds on to Dante that those in the fourth circle who have been through this punishment have at this point lost all individuality and are just virtually unrecognizable. Their faces are just so twisted with rage and anger with what they have to deal with. They've basically lost themselves completely. They get so caught up that they've lost all awareness of everything around them too. So all they can ever do is focus on how pissed they are at the guy in front of them and carrying this goddamn weight.
Oh, it sucks, man. It sounds like just like a really busy day at the gym.
Yep, except constant and no breaks. And I am sure that shit gets really old very quick.
Yeah, tell me about it. Am I right? Chest day, boys. Am I right?
I feel it. So they continue forward past the ditches and the boulders, and Dante and Virgil reach a foggy and muddy riverbank, revealed to be the mouth of the river Styx. And this here is the beginning of the fifth circle, Wrath. The water is described as inky, slimy, and full of naked, splashing bodies
Nice.
contorted faces of rage, and they are violently and constantly striking, biting, punching, and tearing at each other. A pretty straightforward punishment for the wrathful people. But there's a different type of wrath. That's the outwardly violent wrath. There is the quiet wrath, the angrily hating to thyself. And those people lie at the bottom of the water where they have to gurgle and choke, unable to express themselves in death as they were unable to express themselves truly in life.
That's, dude, so you can't yell at people and get angry at people, and you can't keep it in and just be a polite, angry person. Like, there's no pleasing anything here.
Nobody wins. You'll come to find most people in existence just end up going to hell. You have to be pretty fucking chill to make it to heaven, which is a whole other argument of using that as a fear tactic to get more money for the church.
Oh my goodness. Oh, dude, I already, each level we've gotten to, I would already be in.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is just we're just still kind of breaking through the surface. Where when we get into the what's considered by in the story, what's considered in the eyes of God to be way worse. We'll see. We'll see. I think both of us might fit in some of those areas. We'll see.
Oh, great.
Yep. So, but also too, you'll come to find out that it's not just the sin you commit; it's the intent behind committing it, and that actually can save you from being thrown. So it's like, okay, if I was like, you know, had an extra rough round of sex, I'm not going to make it into lust because it was with my wife. You're allowed to do that. That's okay. It's when your lustful tendencies like make you commit sin, like cheating. That's considered a sin of lust. Or having sex with somebody for a favor. Oh yeah, I'll have sex with you and I'll fucking prostitution. That's technically the sin of lust. There has to be a sin committed around it. Just because you're a horny devil doesn't mean you're going to end up in hell, as long as you follow the rules.
Oh, I see. What about fapping?
Fapping, yeah, it's a sin in God's eyes. So yeah, you probably end up in lust.
Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. Okay, good.
If we're going on that, if we're talking about the just not even just the gravity of it, but just the number, the amount of it, oh hell yeah, I'll end up in lust for sure.
Jeez. I guess I could just take my pick at this point, man, because I'm what level is this now? 5? I'm 5 and 5 right now. So
so at that point, it's like you qualify for all of them, and the one you end up in though is probably the one you did the worst, essentially.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, lust, here I come.
Yep.
A lot of fapping, man. I was when I hit 12 years old, and haven't stopped since. So
yeah, with a couple, like as you know in the podcast, there was a couple times I took a little bit of a dry spell on purpose, but as you notice, I don't talk about it anymore because that shit did not last long. Oh boy. So we have the River Styx. We have all the Wrathful who are just basically water polo, having to tread water and throwing hands and like just fighting for all eternity, which I got to bring up. While working on this, I was hanging out with my girlfriend. She's a fighter. She's a scrapper. She loves that kind of stuff. And I cannot describe how interesting of a conversation of convincing her that this does not sound like a fun time at all. She's like, no, this sounds great. You just got to fight. You got to like fight for your right. And like, you know, you're eternal, you're a soul. That sounds great. I'm like, no, you're thinking Valhalla. Valhalla is the cool fighting. That is you got to beat the shit out. You got to stab each other, but then you all got to have a big old fucking feast afterwards and hang out.
Yeah. Fighting's cool, but not when you're having to tread water so you don't drown.
Yeah. And you can get torn the fuck apart. And it's also, you're just constantly in just one giant brawl. Like, as I'm not a fighter. I'm not somebody who enjoys scrapping and all that stuff. To me, that sounds horribly painful. But to her, and I don't know, she was probably just joking with me for all I know, and I just took it too seriously like I tend to do. But it was a very fun conversation. But I don't know, Nick, as somebody who was, for a time, a very, very much a scrapper, how do you feel?
About this specific punishment?
Yes. Yeah.
It sounds like hell.
That's kind of what I figured. I think, and it could just be, like I said, either my girlfriend was joking or very idealistic, in which case, good for her.
If it wasn't for the water, like you could be I'm a good swimmer, but not when I'm trying to beat off men. No, not like that. Yeah. I'm not like beating off men. I'm beating them off.
Right.
You know? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and who knows if all of this ends up being true and Dante was correct. Well, then good on her for being the only one in the fifth circle of hell having a good time.
Yeah. Hey, silver linings, right?
Yeah. No judgment here, man. Hey, dude, if you're fucking ballsy and like badass enough to be able to handle all that shit, like, hey, dude, I'm just saying, I don't think it'll be, you say it's cool, but I think when you get there, it won't be as fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. If it was like an arena, now I'd probably be down for that.
See, and that's why my point was, I think she's thinking more of a Valhalla mentality, in which case, I would want to be there. That sounds great.
It sounds awesome. You could just cut some limbs off, get your own limb cut off, but you regenerate at the end of the day and just have a bunch of food. So
Yeah, exactly. That sounds awesome. Of course, this is no way to make fun of my girlfriend at all. It's just a very fun conversation.
Oh, you're in the fucking doghouse now, buddy.
I'm sleeping on the couch next time. So
Awesome.
I hope it was a good section for you guys because I will suffer for it.
Yeah, seriously. So he's sacrificing for his art right now.
Like any true artist would. I didn't go to art school to not do that. So, anyways, back to Dante and Virgil. As they near the shores, they see bright lights coming from towers in the distance. And they take a minute to take in those sights until they finally reach the boatman, Flagus, I believe. Is that? What do you think? Flagus?
Flagus? I don't. Phlegm? I don't know.
Booger man? I don't know. We'll go with Flagus.
Flagus. Flagus.
So-
I hardly know yous.
Oh my God. Where is this the proper time to make the joke of like, why do we need to go to hell and we're already living it?
Yes, it is because I just made a bad joke. So if that's your
what
hell,
circle of hell is this? What circle of hell am I at?
you're making your way down.
Eventually. So basically, they approach the boatman, and Virgil starts to put the charm on again. Hey, buddy.
Hey,
Will
big
of
boy.
Heaven.
Hey.
Hey, man. Nice boat.
Nice
Yeah.
cock.
Nice. I like your cock, G. Oh, man. So after complimenting his wiener, Flagus is not too keen on the idea of helping them across. He's like, fucking the hell, guys. Like, and I think a lot of this from the context of what I gathered from the story, I think Flagus is just lazy. He's just like, dude, you're not a fucking soul. I don't want to do extra work. Like, no. And also, he's mortal. What the fuck are you doing here? But Virgil convinces him by saying, hey, man, we're going to be a big pain in your ass all day until you let us go across. So it'd just be faster and better for you to just let us aboard and let us on our way. And he's like, God damn it, you're right. Okay. So he lets him on board. And so they begin their trek across the River Styx. During the boat ride, a man named Filippo Argentini aggressively leaps out of the water and grabs onto the side of the boat. And at this point, Dante recognizes him. He's the brother of a man who seized his property when he was exiled from Florence. Dante takes this moment to celebrate his suffering right in his face, telling him right to him, I hope and I'm happy that you will continue to be torn apart for all eternity. And yeah, that's exactly what happens. He falls off the boat and literally gets torn limb from limb.
Talk about just street justice, right?
Yeah. Yes, technically, yeah.
That's beautiful.
And ironic, because is not Dante committing the act of wrath in the Circle of Wrath?
Oh, he is. He just sealed a deal then, didn't he? Way to go, buddy.
Now, you'll find instances of this throughout the story. And if you remember, the allegory here is that the first part of the Divine Comedy, Inferno, the whole theme here is the acknowledgement of sin. So as he goes through hell, this is going to happen time and time again. He runs into an enemy and he just like fucking like, ooh, neener, like wiggles his dick in his face and stuff. The acknowledgement, and over time, that becomes his acknowledgement of, oh, that's my problem. I'm a fucking petty bitch.
Oh, I see. It's a learning experience for him.
Yep. That's the point of this part of the journey, at least. So this is the first example of that. I kind of spoiled what happens, but the shit's been out since 1300. So like, I think we'll live. So as the two and everybody else on the boat come across the end of the Styx, the glowing structures and towers have now come into a clearer view. And Virgil says they have now approached the city of Dees, or lower hell.
Wait, can you say that one more time? What's the city's name?
It's the city of Dees.
D's nuts.
Yeah.
D's nuts, buddy. Oh, you walked into it.
I knew you'd be happy to hear it. City of Dis, if I wanted to, but that's not too much better because fitting dis dick in your mouth.
Yeah, how about slobbing on dis knob, huh?
Oh man, if only Dante knew what the future would hold for his great poem.
A shitty poem. I'm gonna shit all over it, man, with dumb jokes.
Oh boy. Now I'm sure he turns in his grave or wherever the fuck he ended up. So this is essentially lower hell. This is the easy part. They're finally, everything we've seen is if you ended up there, you're not too bad. But anything past here, that's when shit's starting to get a little bit real. but it appears as just like one giant iron fortress, big iron walls, and constantly being surveillanced and guarded by fallen angels, which there's no real clear description, but like I just imagine the really fucked up looking angels that are all twisted, demonic looking and stuff
with all the
flying
eyes
around.
So the ones that look like Lovecraftian monsters.
That's what I like to picture. I just think it makes it look like a dark fortress of evil.
Yeah, I totally agree, dude.
So Flagius lets Virgil and Dante off at the front gates and returns to his post back across the river. Fallen angels immediately descend on our heroes and angrily question them of their intentions here. Virgil hits them with the usual, "We're here on the will of heaven." But the fallen angels, they don't give a shit. And they say, yeah, right. Fuck you. You're not coming in.
Are you on the list? No, not on the list? All right, fuck off.
Legitimately. Absolutely. Yeah, they're like, no, fuck you. We're not letting you in. I don't give a shit. If you're fucking Jesus himself, you're not coming in. So after a little bit of discourse, Virgil pulls Dante aside and says, "Okay, look, buddy, this isn't working. But I'm gonna cut them a deal." And I believe the deal was that Virgil can be let in as long as he never can return to the first circle of hell from whence he came. But the twist, he's like, "But I'm gonna open the door for you once I get in, and we could both get in, and it'll be super fun and dandy, and we can continue."
It's like they're planning to sneak into a community pool. That it sounds like they're trying to get into a pool. And they're just like, "Oh, I got this sick plan. Check this out."
Yeah, don't worry, they'll let me in, bro. No, it's like 10-year-olds like planning a small like scheme, except they're in the bowels of hell.
Oh man. Oh, good.
So again, to set the scene here, they're right at the shores of the river Styx. So it's like it almost looks like a floating fortress, except the fortress is, I'm assuming, connected to big, large, cavernous walls with, remember, it's glowing hot iron, and the walls are fucking huge, and the gate is even bigger, fucking crazy. So they're gonna need a good way to get in. So Virgil gives his plan to Dante, and Dante's basically in his classic fashion, I was like, "Oh no, don't leave me by myself." Literally, yeah, he has like a fucking meltdown. He's like, "No, bro, don't fucking leave me here, man. Like, I need you." And he's like, no, dude, I got you. I got this. We'll be fine. So Virgil walks over and begins to talk to the demons. And all Dante hears is the clicking of the locks as the gates are now completely shut. Virgil fucking blew it. And he walks back with his tail between his legs, very sad and sullen. To which Dante, you would think, well, at least I got my buddy back. No, Dante is now like, so now we can't fucking progress. So we're stuck. And Virgil's like, yeah, not really, man. We can try. And Virgil's now starting to lose his cool. Dante has a fucking meltdown. He is losing his shit. He's now doubting Virgil's plan, and also now starting to realize and think, I don't even think there was a plan at all. Do you even know what the fuck you're doing? Have you even been down here before? And Virgil's like, once. And Dante's like, fuck. So, yeah. Yep. Not looking good. And even though Virgil's doing his best to keep it together because he's a good tour guide, they're both getting a little uneasy. Because remember, being stuck in hell means you're stuck forever. And just as they thought things couldn't get any worse, the Furies, Alecto, Megara, and Tisiphone show up out of the sky. Seeing them in their sorry condition, thought it'd be pretty fun to summon Medusa on them and turn Dante into stone and 100% trap him here forever. So the boys just fucking book it. They're like, fuck, here we go. Like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And Virgil is shouting to Dante as they run, avert your eyes, because if you look at Medusa and you turn to stone, there's nothing we can do. You're finished. So during the chase, climactically, the boys manage to give him the slip and find a small hiding spot. And as they're trying to gather themselves and figure out what to do next, a great noise booms through the Styx. A large, imposing figure rises from the water and approaches Dante and Virgil, telling them to bow the fuck down and shut the fuck up. The figure then effortlessly swats and scatters the Furies and Medusa away in a great noble anger. He then commands all of the fallen angels to be gone.
Be gone. Thought.
Exactly. And they leave. They fucking hightail it the fuck out of there. Dante and Virgil now realize that he was an angel, sent there to show those demons the real fucking definition of will of heaven, because they did have the will of heaven backing them up. And when the demons didn't buy it, they paid the price.
Got it. Okay, so their daddies came and saved them.
Yep. Basically, demons thought they had big old ball sacks, being like, no, you can fucking eat my ass. And so then the big guns come in, like, okay, guys, that's not how this works. And basically just choose them all away. It's not as cool. He doesn't like do anything crazy, like smashing their heads up or anything, but they nope the fuck out of there pretty damn quick. So that being done, the angel then approaches the gates of D's with his wand. Apparently, angels have wands, and smacks it, opening the door and unlocking it, creating a way for Dante and Virgil. But before he leaves, the angel takes a minute to talk some shit. Fucking let those demons know, hey, man, don't fuck with heaven. You think you're so fucking, know your place. Trash.
Wait, hold on. What was the gate again? What gate did they go through? D's nuts. That's where they went through. I will tell you something real quick. I've been listening intently to this story so far, this narrative you've put together of this poem.
Right.
It just sounds like an 80s teen comedy, but like in hell. You know what I mean?
It's really funny you say that, because that is exactly the way I pictured it. Well, like as I pieced the story together, I'm like, this is kind of fun. Like, this is a romp. Like, these are two bros, like fucking they're on like it's almost, I almost think Blues Brothers, like we're on a mission from God, and they're just like bumbling through.
It's just, I just been picturing like Huey Lewis in the News and like Frankie Goes to Hollywood playing in the background this whole time. But it's an interesting read, and there's definitely some things in here that are concerning me as a person. So,
oh yeah, and I think that's half the point of the story. But as just to close off, because we are coming to the close of part 1. The angel, who remained unnamed after talking shit, basically just descends back into the river Styx to return from whence he comes. And the boys, now with an open gate, continue forth in what we will cover in the next episode, the Sixth Circle, Heresy, and onward.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Pretty fucking metal. This is, like I said, when you take away all the like really like scholastic like analysis and the difficulty of reading it, it's a pretty cool story. Like, I would love an interpretation of a movie of this, like you said, in the style of like a 80s comedy. That would be fucking I would watch that shit in a heartbeat.
Yeah, this is a very interesting story. I think Dante is a bitch. Virgil is a con man. He's a flim-flammer.
Quite so. He's very unprepared for his duty.
And the three ladies in heaven, when are we going to see them again? Is that like a thing that we get to look forward to?
Nah, that's it. That's just they're basically, them putting them on this path is basically just what's keeping them safe. That's what's keeping them from hell, literally just like, oh, hey, welcome, mortal, stab, welcome aboard. Like, no, because the whole idea is, like I said, the story is an allegory. It's supposed to tell about learning about your sins, how to acknowledge them, how to fix them, and how to reach God. And going through hell, Dante is sent to do that for that purpose, to fix him. So he isn't being sent to hell to be killed. That's the thing. But demons, it's hell, man. Anything goes. So there is still an element of danger, and things get a little screwy for our heroes.
Ooh, he's got malleable butthole, and he's ready to abuse it.
Yeah, and like I said, there is not a lot of sexual assault in this story, actually, really at all.
Shame.
I know you were excited for that, especially the lust part. Like I said, if you want that shit, play the video game. They really kind of play that shit up like a lot more. Like, I think the fucking boss of lust is straight up just Cleopatra, and like little like monster things come out of her like nipples and shit.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure it's on Game Pass, so I'm gonna be doing that right after this. And if you don't see me next week for the recording, you know what I'm doing.
Yeah, honestly, dude, it's a fun game. I only played through like half of it. I'm not a big like hack and slash fan, but it's fun. You get, like I said, you're armed with like death scythe, like that's your main weapon. You can run into like tortured souls, and you can like absolve them, or you can like absorb them and like take like your path of like how your play style is and stuff like that. And it's cool. It's cool. I really liked it.
That's cool, man. Oh man, Dante. Dante,
Mhm.
he wouldn't do well in boot camp. You know what I mean? I feel like he's the type of dude who would just pass out every time a DI yells at him.
Well,
So
remember, he's a poet. He's not a tough guy.
yeah,
He's a writer.
he's a
He's a
fairy.
yeah, a bit of a softer soul.
Yeah, that's a really good way. That's a very 2021 way to put it, Tasker. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. But that is it for now. Like I said, and what a great time to stop. We had that good climax kind of at the end of like, oh fuck, are they gonna make it? Oh, they made it. And then they step forward into the abyss further. So, like I said, next time on the next episode of this, we're gonna go into the more brutal stuff until the inevitable center of hell itself.
Yeah, good job on the research, buddy. Good job translating it into ways that a hungover person can understand.
I think Dante would be proud. He take a story that should have been written in Latin, he put it in the commoner's language. I took a story that most people would be like, "Fuck, I'm not reading that," and putting it in a way that we can all understand.
Like monkey language.
I was gonna say lower middle class.
That too. Hey, what's the difference? You know,
late stage capitalism is killing us.
I don't like this anymore.
Oh boy. Well, anyways, thank you all for going through. I hope you enjoy the story, and I'm hoping you can join us next time for the next part and the climactic conclusion. But I gotta say, Count Chocula, you think you'd probably end up in one of the more later stages. I don't even think we've gotten. I think he would actually end up in the lowest circle, which is spoiler, treachery.
He's a treacherous motherfucker, and we all know that. But the thing is, something that's concerning me is the fact that a similarity between myself and Count Chocula is I think we could fit into almost every single circle.
Oh yeah. You're 5 for 5, right?
So far, and I'm pretty sure he is too. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know which one he's done the most of, but
yeah. Well, and that's part of the research is we need to find this shit out. We need to know exactly what he's done and what he's in for, because once we finally can, ice the bastard, once we release the episode, of course, because as we said, the release of the episode will coincide with his capture, because if it didn't, Nick and I would be dead for sure.
Yeah, releasing the episode on him while he's still out there lurking about is seriously one of the most special education things we could do.
Yeah, it'll be a sort of expose of once he's been captured. It's like, and not only that, we have the story. So Count Chocula episode coming soon. We're working on it. Don't worry, guys. It'll happen when it happens. It needs to be given. There's a lot of moving pieces that need to line up.
That's right. And we have to get our hard drives combined so we could have all because right now we have them encrypted in a way that we can't get them out, but we need to decrypt them, get all the data collected into one hard drive, and then only then can we get the outline finished to release an episode.
Yeah, we had to create our own hieroglyphic language too, because it's just impossible to decipher. And at some points too, I even use some like art school chops, so they can't even draw it.
That's right. And most of our hieroglyphics are just different body parts, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, a lot of dick and balls.
Different sizes, circumcised, uncircumcised, different size BBs, vaginas, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's cute. And hopefully it'll serve us well. But if you are listening on iTunes, if you could please hit us with a 5-star rate and review, that would be fantastic. Really help us with the visibility. Spotify, you could click and the follow button, and it will notify you of our new episodes that come every single Wednesday. Instagram is at CEOTPK. Our YouTube channel is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. Twitter is at CEOTPK1. Facebook, Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. You can email us at ceotpk1@gmail.com. Our Discord is discord.gg/lowercase b, number 6, capital C, capital T, number 5, capital M, capital X. If you want to donate to us, we have a coffee, ko-fi.com/CEOTPK.
As far as donating, okay, we always say it's a gift that you're giving to us. It's something that it's not required. You don't have to do it. It's just something that's super nice to do. But fuck all that for a second. Look, send me Pedialyte. If you're going to donate anything, just donate me a bottle of Pedialyte. I don't feel so good. My head hurts. I'm going to throw up pretty soon. Don't drink vodka straight like you're Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin, because you're not, and you will throw up.
or a fucking freshman in college. Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, just a lot. I had a lot of Kettle One last night.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. It's clean, but it's still a hangover. So come on, donate me some fucking Pedialyte.
Absolutely. And also too, one little note is we just passed 100 followers on Spotify. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome, guys. And that's just Spotify, right? I know Spotify is getting a little bigger for podcasts, so that's one of our many platforms, but that's one of the easiest for us to track. So we do appreciate all of yous out there listening. And, we always joke about the listeners, but you guys are the best. Not to get too mushy, but...
No, we're always just so happy to have you here. Feel free to please join us on our social media, Discord. We frequent our Discord, I think, more than anything. So it's the best way if you want to directly drop whatever you want to drop there. So, yeah, feel free.
Yeah, and look, whether you think you belong in the lust circle or let's say the wrath circle, because they're interchangeable in some cases, the truth is out there.
Maybe, but probably not. It's not.
All aboard the rape train. Okay, we can cut that.
Go ahead.